Hi everybody, Steve here once again at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, California. And today, this was my third trip here looking for the gravesite of Monty Hall. You remember Monty Hall, don't you? The host of Let's Make a Deal? I guess 3 times really is a charm. In addition to showing you Monty Hall's gravesite today, I'm also going to share with you quite a few other very interesting gravesite visits sent to me by subscribers to this channel. Thanks for joining me on another trip to visit the most memorable cemeteries, memorials, and gravesites. Well, it's 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and I'm heading from Palm Springs to Culver City, and if I leave this early, I can usually get there in about 2 hours, and right around the time the cemetery opens. But even on a Sunday morning, there's no guarantee that there won't be a traffic jam or an accident or some other delay. After all, this is the Los Angeles area. And from the blinking lights up ahead, it looks like the patrol car is getting ready once again to shut down the freeway. This will make 2 Sunday mornings in a row. Last Sunday morning, it was shut down for about a half hour. This morning was just a 5-minute shutdown, so today I lucked out. To find Monty Hall's final resting place, you just enter through the front gates and go straight until the road curves to the left and follow it around until you see the Valley of Remembrance section marked on the curb on the left-hand side of the street. It's a medium-sized cemetery and the sections are well marked and pretty easy to find. Finding the gravesites, though, can be a little bit more challenging. I'll pan around to give you a better idea of his location, and I also added a GPS to make it easier to find if you decide to visit in person. It's hard for me to believe that there might be someone out there who hasn't heard of Monty Hall, but just in case you're not familiar with him, he was the host of the game show Let's Make a Deal for 30 years, starting in 1963 when it first went on the air. And here we are 56 years later, and it's still on the air. And I think my mom's watched every episode. To be honest, I'm not much of a fan of game shows, but that was the one show that I liked when I was a kid. And my mom loved it, and she still loves it today. She still watches it. And how could you not like Monty Hall? He was the perfect host for the show. And look at his epitaph, together 70 years and counting. Whether it was a marriage or a TV show, when he found something he loved, he sure stuck with it. Hall was born Monty Halperin on August 25, 1921, in Winnipeg, Canada. He died from heart failure at the age of 96 on September 30th, 2017, in Beverly Hills, California. His wife Marilyn died the same year, and she was also in show business. She was a successful TV and theater producer and writer. Lately, I've received quite a few very angry comments from viewers saying that it's disrespectful for me to walk on gravesites. At first, I thought the comments were just coming from internet trolls. You know how they love to leave negative comments to see if they can get a reaction. But then it occurred to me that maybe these are genuine comments from people who have never been to a cemetery. At least in all the cemeteries that I've ever been to, the only place you can walk in a cemetery is over a grave. Under every bit of grass that you see in a cemetery is someone's grave. If it's disrespectful to walk on the grass, how would the cemetery even mow the lawn? So my guess is that all of the people making these comments are really referring to walking on the headstones. And I totally agree. I never step on a headstone. I wouldn't want to damage the headstone, and who knows what might be on the bottom of your feet. So as I'm walking through the cemetery today, I just happened to remember those comments, and so I thought I would answer them as I was walking. I appreciate all comments, even if I don't always understand them all. What are your thoughts about walking on the grass that covers grave sites in cemeteries? In contrast to Monty Hall's very long life, Rick Brawley sent me this photo from his visit to Ray Combs' gravesite. I'm sure many of you will remember Combs as the host of the game show Family Feud from 1988 to 1994, and as the host of Family Challenge from 1995 to 96. He was reportedly despondent over financial problems and sadly hung himself at the young age of 40 in Glendale, California on June 2nd, 1996. Connie Carpenter sent me this photo that she took in her local cemetery, Owingsville Cemetery in Owingsville, Kentucky, and I thought the message was especially interesting. The epitaph reads, "Will some loving hand please decorate this lonely grave?" is the request of his surviving brother, now living in a distant state. The name on the headstone is Jason T. Wilroy. At least I assume that JAS is short for Jason. And it appears that he was killed fighting in the Civil War for the Confederate Army. It's nice to see that his brother was still looking out for him even after his death. Mariah Williams shared these photos of her recent visit to the St. Louis Cemetery No. 3 in New Orleans, Louisiana. This cemetery is definitely on my bucket list. I attended Mardi Gras in New Orleans back in 1980, but for some reason, I didn't visit the cemetery at that time. It's been so long ago now that I don't remember why, but a second visit to the city seems long overdue. Sarah Aldridge sent me these photos from her visit to Bruce and Brandon Lee's gravesites at Lakeview Cemetery in Seattle, Washington. Sarah certainly chose a very beautiful day to visit. And Robert Sanchez sent me these photos from his recent visit to William Bonney, or Billy the Kid's, gravesite at Old Fort Sumner Cemetery in Fort Sumner, New Mexico. I also visited Billy the Kid's gravesite this summer, and I'll be sharing that with you in a future vlog. So thank you, Rick, Connie, Mariah, Sarah, and Robert for sharing your cemetery visits with us, and especially for including yourself in the pictures. This past weekend, I attended my first scattering of ashes ceremony. My mom's significant other, John Nelson, passed away at the age of 80 about 3 months ago. His final wish was to be cremated and to have his ashes scattered in the desert behind the home where they lived. That's where my mom also wants to be scattered someday. The memorial service started out as a casual and informal celebration of life with friends and family gathered in the yard. Then, after we all shared happy memories of John, we made our way out into the desert to light a Chinese paper flying memorial lantern in his honor.
But Joanne is a great artist, and for our Chinese lantern to sail for him into the sky, she was able to paint on the Chinese lantern the Black Panther. Isn't that amazing?
It seemed like a good idea at the time, but I guess John just wasn't ready for his final departure. With a strong breeze and too many trees nearby, it turns out it wasn't such a great idea after all. It appears that it's still legal to fly these lanterns in many parts of Arizona, but in my online search I discovered that here in the US, 29 other states have banned them altogether. The risk of starting a fire is just too great. So we decided it would be better just to hold on to this lantern as a memento of this special day. The wind was perfect though for scattering his ashes. Friends and family took turns scattering them, and it was so much more personal than the formal funerals I remember attending when I was growing up and even in later years. And while I love cemeteries, I love the simplicity and beauty and the naturalness of this as well. Thanks, John, for leaving us all with many happy memories and a laugh that none of us will ever forget. Monty Hall owned a home here in the greater Palm Springs desert area where I live for many years, and he even has a street named after him at City Hall in Cathedral City. And today I'd like to thank my latest Patreon supporters, Jen Marie Steiber and Jill McDaniel. Thanks for your generous contributions, Jill and Jen Marie. So as always, it's very windy here today, and so I'm hiding my phone. I'm standing behind a large tree, trying to shelter my phone from the wind, trying not to be in complete shade. So if you enjoyed today's vlog, please give it a thumbs up and share with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell button if you'd like to be notified when I upload future videos like this one. And until our next trip to the cemetery together, thanks for sharing the memories, everyone.